If you've signed up to make something at your next potluck or social gathering, I think I've got you covered. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 different plant-based dips, spreads, appetizers, snacks, whatever you want to call them, all of which take just 15 minutes or less to make. And you know the drill. All of the recipes are already on the Pick Up Lime's website with metric measurements included as well. So I'll leave the link to those in the description box below in case you want to check it out. All right, let's get started. We'll start by making one of my favorite appetizers, the bruschetta. There's nothing quite like the combination of warm toasted bread with a refreshing, moist, herb and garlic-infused tomato topping. We'll start by dicing 7 medium tomatoes, and don't bother to add the extra fluids that seep out during the cutting into the bowl. You don't want the mixture to be too wet or the bread will get soggy. Then we'll finely chop 1/4 of a red onion and finely mince 2 cloves of garlic. Then we'll take about 20 or so leaves of fresh basil and stack them on top of one another. Roll it up and thinly slice it to get these perfect little slivers of aromatic basil to add to the bowl. Then sprinkle on 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper, and then you can add in a teaspoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, and toss everything to combine. Although you can enjoy this immediately, it's best to cover it and let it sit in the fridge for at least 2 hours to allow the flavors to meld. You can serve it fresh on toasted bread or toast the mixture with the bread together in the oven for a warm bruschetta. I like to add my own twist to the traditional bruschetta by spreading some hummus on the toasted bread before adding the mixture on top. Garnish it with fresh basil if desired, and enjoy. This next recipe is one of Robin's favorites, an easy chunky guacamole. For this you'll just need 1/2 of a red onion, finely diced, 2 tomatoes, coarsely chopped, and 3 very ripe avocados. If there are brown spots in the avocados, you'll want to make sure that you remove them before you start mashing. Then we'll add in the juice of 1 lime and 2 cloves of garlic, freshly crushed. Add in 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of ground cumin. Then mash it all together until it's well combined. You can leave some chunks of avocados if you'd like more texture. Then we'll gently stir in the tomatoes and the onions and 2 tablespoons or so of freshly chopped chives. Now you can transfer the mixture to a serving bowl and garnish it with chives and lime wedges if desired. Serve it with tortilla chips and fresh veggies as a dip or as a side with dinner, or enjoy it in sandwiches or wraps. Super easy, wouldn't you say? Now I have this thing with olives, and olive tapenades are like food for the gods in my opinion. I used to buy them from local farmers markets until I learned to make my own. So for this recipe, you'll just need 1 cup of Kalamata olives and 1 cup of green olives pitted. If you buy them pre-pitted, this will save you some time, but I don't mind taking out the seeds myself because it means I can occasionally pop an olive into my mouth as I go along. Once it's pitted, you'll then want to chop the olives until they're very finely minced. It does feel a little repetitive, but it makes for a more appealing looking tapenade if cut by a knife, which is especially important if you're serving it to guests. Alternatively, if you're making it just for yourself, you can speed the process up by adding all the ingredients to a food processor to blend it, but just a little heads up, the texture will come out looking a bit more mushed in this case. I assure you though, it'll taste just as amazing. You'll then want to repeat this with 1/4 cup of sun-dried tomatoes, and again with 3 tablespoons of roasted walnuts, a tablespoon of capers, and 2 cloves of garlic, all finely minced. Then, like we did before, we'll take about 20 leaves of fresh basil and stack them on top of one another, roll them up, and then thinly slice. Then coarsely chop it before adding it to the bowl. Now we'll squeeze in the juice of 1/2 a lemon, add in a tablespoon of olive oil, a teaspoon of dried oregano, and toss the ingredients to combine, and feel free to mash it a little bit too to extract the juices and flavors from the different ingredients. Now you can enjoy the tapenade right away, but if you can handle to wait, I'd recommend covering it and placing it in the fridge for at least 2 hours or overnight to allow the flavors to really develop. It makes quite the difference in taste, but I can hardly ever wait. Then spoon it into a bowl to serve, or you can add it to salads and sandwiches too, like you'll see I've done here. I'll leave the links to these 2 recipes as well for you in the description box below. One more reason I love this tapenade recipe is because it calls for about 1/4 or less oil than traditional tapenade recipes. The olives themselves offer enough whole food fats in my opinion, which I much prefer the flavor of. I hope you enjoy this tapenade as much as I do. Next up is the sun-dried tomato and white bean dip made with nothing but whole food ingredients. We'll start by mincing 1 red onion and 2 cloves of garlic. We'll add 1 teaspoon of oil to a pan on high heat and saute the onions until they become soft and start to brown, which will take about 5 minutes. Then you can add the garlic and continue to saute until the onions have lightly caramelized. Now to a food processor, we'll add 2 cups of white kidney beans, a 1/4 cup of sun-dried tomatoes, the sauteed mixture, making sure to reserve a little bit for later, the juice of 1 lemon, a teaspoon of balsamic vinegar, a tablespoon of nutritional yeast, and a little sprinkle of salt and pepper to your liking. Then blend it all up, stopping on occasion to help out the machine a bit by scraping down the tops and the sides. Some chunks can remain if you like more texture like I do. Now you can enjoy this immediately, or like we've seen before, make it ahead of time and allow it to sit in the fridge for 2 hours or overnight to enhance the flavors a little bit more. Before serving, we'll chop up a couple tablespoons of fresh chives to mix in by hand into the dip, along with a reserved onion and garlic mixture to give it some more bite. Finally, we'll garnish with lemon wedges, sun-dried tomatoes, and fresh chives. Serve it as a dip with crackers, bread, and fresh veggies, or enjoy it as a spread in sandwiches and wraps. And we save the one that's most like dessert for the end, a strawberry mango salsa with baked cinnamon sugar pita bread. We'll start with the pitas so we can get them in the oven first. For this, we'll just spread some plant-based margarine onto the pita bread and sprinkle on some sugar and cinnamon, then cut the pitas into equally sliced wedges and bake them in the oven at 400 Fahrenheit or 200 Celsius for about 7 to 10 minutes or until it's crisp to your liking. For the salsa, you'll need about 2/3 of a cup of chopped ripe mango, 3/4 of a cup of chopped strawberries, 2 tablespoons of diced red onion, half of a jalapeno minced, and about 10 leaves of fresh basil cut into strips as we did before. Then we'll add in the juice of 1 lime and a teaspoon of agave syrup, although you're free to omit this one if you'd like. The fruit tends to be sweet enough. After mixing, we'll add it all to a serving bowl, and that's it. Enjoy! Now I'm really curious to know which one of these recipes sparked your interest the most, so let me know in the comment section below. And if you found any inspiration at all from this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It always helps to support the channel when you do. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Pickup Limes signing off. We'll see you next week.